a story out of our northern neighbors, Canada, and specifically in British Columbia. There's another perpetration on rights happening for our Canadian neighbors, and hopefully they get it sorted out. This article comes to us today, and it's the Canadian Press reporting. The head of a BC cannabis growers group says the city of Vancouver's choice to discourage instead of sanction a marijuana celebration over the weekend was a costly missed opportunity. The BC Craft Farmers Co-op says the city should rethink its approach to 420 celebrations and sanctions what could be an international cannabis tourism event. Co-op President Tara Kirkpatrick says the city erected barriers around Sunset Beach and had police target vendors at an unsanctioned celebration over the weekend, instead of authorizing a professionally run special event, similar to the annual Pride Parade. Previous celebrations in Vancouver on April 20th, considered the day to celebrate smoking cannabis, have drawn tens of thousands of people, caused traffic gridlock, and expensive damage to the city parks. However, Kirkpatrick says such an event could generate millions in tourism revenue for the province, which could cash in on BC's rich cannabis culture and reputation as a place with legendary craft cannabis farmers. Vancouver's Parks Board had temporary fences put up and closed washrooms and parking lots on Saturday as a way to mitigate what it said was a non-sanctioned cannabis protest event. The group says Vancouver could have followed in the footsteps of City of Prince George, which held a permitted cannabis summit over the weekend attended by thousands, including the city's mayor. And it's a short story today, but this is just sad. This is sad. Vancouver's such a cool city, and cannabis is pretty prominent there historically. I wonder what they're thinking. I wonder if any of our guests on the show or any of our people watching in the chat have any knowledge of 420 events in Canada and could shed some color for us. But that's Saman Razani reporting for High at Night News. Hopefully Vancouver gets it together. What do you guys think?
They think they stopped anybody from smoking weed on 420 because they closed the washrooms? Mm-hmm. Like, what the fuck?
I mean,
Canada.
I will say this. I will say this. If I was going to go to Canada, I would. Vancouver is probably one of the best places to go. Maybe also to Montreal or Toronto. But I think all the rest of it, you know what I mean? Like, but Vancouver is a fantastic city to visit and be at. Not to mention, too, Vancouver, I'm not sure if it still is, but back in the day, there's more Playboy Playmates that came out of Vancouver than any other city in the world.
Well, that's an interesting fact.
Mm-hmm.
Where'd you get that from?
It's the internet. I used to trip out when I go up there. I'd be like, oh, my God, this is like L.A. of the North.
Well, it sounds like this enforcement action or this discouragement, they took their cues from Australia, which we covered a couple days ago, and their arresting of those 36 out of 250 attendees at a safe access 420 celebration. I think they need to call people like Brian Applegarth and start understanding the conversations related to cannabis tourism. Canada has this oversized influence on cannabis because of its federal legality. The truth is the entire country as a market is smaller than California, and they would be well served to do whatever they can to continue to maintain that prominence in whatever ways they can. And so this is doesn't really make a lot of sense. I'm not sure what other types of events they would have felt would have been impacted by this event, but like closing off beaches, like no. Like any economic development director can tell you the goal is to have people come and spend their money at your city. I was born and raised in San Francisco, and San Francisco without tourism is not as good of a city as it is with tourism. And people coming in, enjoying our clam chowder and our sourdough, snapping pictures of Coit Tower, going to Golden Gate Park. And so when you have an opportunity to capture tourist dollars related or just influx of money from other towns related to special events, you roll out the red carpet, you pay for some extra cops to do traffic control. And
like what San Francisco
take that money.
Like what San Francisco did when President Xi came through, right?
Oh yeah, exactly. Like before, one of the other highlights was scraping human feces off your shoes. So
exactly.
It's like,
two things I learned. Two things I learned today. San Francisco has clam chowder.
Yeah.
Number one, and number two. as an East Coaster, I'm like, what? But number two, I didn't know that Canada really celebrated 420. So Mark won another win for America.
It is a global holiday.
Holiday, bro.
It's their second Canada Day. It's their second Canada Day.
But no, that's funny that you bring up Australia, Yarrow, because Canada actually exports to Australia. They have a trade agreement for cannabis. So it's like, look, you're importing weed to serve your communities, and then you're arresting people that are at a safe access event. It's pretty ridiculous. Obviously, I'm not putting too much faith into law enforcement to actually use common sense in most scenarios. So this is just, obviously a byproduct of that non-common sense approach and that non-common sense policy for people upholding justice in communities. Like, when you have the Parks and Rec, blocking the beach, exactly what you said. Any economic development, anybody with a shred of, just a little bit of knowledge can tell you that that's a bad idea, because you're deterring the people from coming there, and they're going to go where it's open and free, where their rights are not going to be infringed upon, where they're not going to have to deal with the court system and the justice system because they wanted to attend an event. Hopefully this gets reversed quickly in Vancouver, because that's such a big city. I've personally never been there. I've been to the east coast of Canada plenty of times, but I don't know. This sounds all bad for Vancouver. Hopefully they can figure it out.
Yeah. I'm a big fan of Vancouver.
I love Vancouver.
Come to Vegas. We treat those tourists right.
Vegas understands the value of incoming dollars in a way that very few other cities do. In respects to the Australian enforcement action at that event, it's not fair for us to just blame the cops. Cops are like the piñata, right? They just get they take the hits. At the end of the day, when 36 out of 250 people are arrested, it's not the line staff who made those choices. It's not the guy who reached for those handcuffs on his utility belt. It's the people above who told those line staff what to do. And so we have to hold senior staff and policymakers accountable, because cops just don't get any respect, right? They're like the Rodney Dangerfield of civil servants. And at the end of the day, some of them have a lot of common sense, and there are some that are underappreciated. We need to hold those organizations accountable at the very top and say, if you're using resources to arrest people on 420 and you're arresting 36 out of 250 attendees, that is not a good use of public funds.
You got to put a disclaimer up, just letting people know that you support, the fraternal brotherhood of police, like all that shit, because you and defending all the cops like all the time, man. It's really starting to grind my gears.
Let's be clear. I've been arrested more than all of you combined. I have done probably more time than all of you combined.
I don't know about all that.
Person who had a criminal case.
How much time?
Check my rap sheet. You'll need to put a new ink cartridge in your printer to actually read it. I will also say I'm probably one of the few people on this panel who had evidence manufactured against me, that had money disappear on the way to the evidence locker.
I've had all those things
I have an axe to grind against those that are not accountable, and a culture that doesn't include accountability. But I also think that, generally speaking, coming as the child of two civil servants, that most government employees don't get enough respect.
And on that, we got to go to a commercial, and we'll be right back.
That's a different topic.
We'll be right back. Let's go to a commercial, Adam. Yeah.